Okay, today we will wind up the other aspects of windings which are relevant. The two aspects we will see is armature windings and any other engineering aspects which you need to know for different machines. Okay. These are the more informations on winding you must know. That is, first aspect is that you are aware that coils are embedded in slots, and because of that it permits small air gap. Why do we put them coils in the slots? Because if you paste the coils on the rotor surface, that is also possible, then it will increase the air gap size. Therefore, you putting inside the slots will reduce the air gap size, to that extent it reduces the magnetizing requirements. Then it also reduces forces on the conductors. This is two aspects why you put them in the slots. Because after all, if you paste it, then there will be a lot of electromagnetic forces which would be both radial and tangential. So it might dislocate or make it to move. Okay, this is second aspect. Next is, we know that as we said, first bottom coil heads are placed, then top ones are placed. This is the fabrication. Then you also know the coil ends cross over each other. So you must have a proper weight at the coil end. End winding making is an important aspect of the windings. Then next point is single layer windings. Winding has dissimilar coils. If it is single layer, coils are not similar, but if it is double layer, you can use identical coils. Yesterday we saw single layer coils will have different coil span. One, it could be a concentric one, the inside one having a smaller span than the outside one. Okay. Next is what are the connection between coil groups? In the coil group, you have to connect between different groups. You have to make coil to coil connections. This is one connection you will be making. Okay. Different coils you must have a connection. Okay. If A phase, there are several coils, you must make one connection. Then phase group connection. In each phase, you must make the grouping, series, parallel, etc. Then you must also have paralleling connection. So these are all the connections it must be made in forming a winding. Okay. Then we have in single layer windings, there are several types. What is unbifurcated and bifurcated windings? Bifurcated, yesterday we saw that each coil is bifurcated into two parts, one going to left and another going to right. It is a split concentric. Unbifurcated is that you put them all together, each coil phase together, and I will show you a picture, maybe something here. You have a concentric two plane overhang, okay, then concentric three plane overhang. That means you have a different planes, let A, C, B for example. So they are in different plane, different phases in different plane. It is a concentric three plane overhang. You have a two plane overhang. That means overhang means end winding. End windings are in one plane, two plane, three plane, like that. So that is how it is. Then you have the three split plane overhang. That means they are split into different segments, one inside, then other going like that. Okay. So there are different ways in which the single layer windings are placed so that we avoid the problem of overhang in the this thing. So there are two plane overhang and three plane overhang. okay, unbifurcated. So these are not so you find some of them are not bifurcated. Bifurcated means each car group divided into two segments, one turning to left, another turning to right. Bifurcated are the one which has such a segment. Okay, bifurcated split concentric. So there are also hairpin coils, and there are what are mush windings. Okay. Now, if you look at the type of coil, this can be like a hairpin coil. Okay, and this is the diamond one with this is a multi-turn, this thing, and there are also coils placed like this, single and double layer coils. Okay, so this could be single layer, and this could be double layer. Double layer will be different planes like that. Okay, there is what are mush windings. Mush windings are, if you have a one coil, one will have a longer side than the other. This is called mush winding. Right. So a coil will have, it is not same. So what they do is in single layer, first these are all multi-turn. You push them into the slots, then slowly one after the other you try to put it in the other slot properly. You have some flexibility like that. Okay. This is called a mush winding. Okay. Mush windings are having two coil sides of unequal length. Okay. That means one coil side shorter than the other. That's called a mush winding. So what you do is long and short sides occupy alternate slots. If one slot has a long side, next slot will have a short side, like that. These are all for mechanical considerations. Long and short sides occupy different slots. Okay. These are all different aspects of single layer windings, how they are placed, bifurcated, unbifurcated, and then mush windings and so on. Double layer windings, on the other hand, they are all synchronous machines. All synchronous machines have double layer windings, and most of the induction machines have double layer windings above a few kilowatts, except small machines which is maybe less than 10 kilowatt. So they are single layer windings. Okay. In all double layer windings, one thing you see is the number of coils is equal to number of slots. The C is number of coils, and S is number of slots. So in all double layer winding, number of coils is number of slots. That means if it is 36 slots, means 36 coils will be there. Okay. So 36 coils means 12 coils per slot per phase, right? So that's how you will have. And there are two types in double layer. One is called the integral slot windings. That means number of slots per pole per phase is integer. M is integer. That is just called integral slot. 3 slots per pole per phase, 4 slots per pole per phase. But there are also in some machines for some special design called fractional slot windings. M is not an integer. This is also used in some places, mostly in large synchronous machines. These are called fractional slot windings. Okay. Okay. Then you normally do carding, and carding, apart from reducing harmonics of the MMF, it also reduces overhang. If the coil span is small, the overhang or end winding length is small, isn't it? So if you take, for example, this is one coil. Okay, look at this is the overhang. Okay, and if you make a smaller coil, this overhang between these two, what do you notice? Which is small? So if a coil, if this coil span is A, this coil span is B, with B less than A, overhang here is less than the overhang of this. That means you don't have to pass through a longer length at the end. That is one of the advantages of short carding, okay, apart from the MMF. So that's one thing you must know, it reduces overhang. Okay. Then types of double layer winding, you have end connections have different shapes, because in end there are different ways in which you make the end connections depending upon the requirements. Okay. Now, there are generally two types of windings are there. One we call it as a lap winding, another is call it as a wave winding. So, lap and wave are typically like this. Now, this is a lap winding. Bar lap means it goes and comes back to the same pole. This is called a lap. This is called a single turn lap or a multi turn lap. That means after one thing, one turn it goes to the next coil in the same pole. This is called a lap winding. That means after the north pole or south pole comes from the same north pole, right? But if a multi-pole, you can, this is called a wave winding. It goes like a wave. It goes, starts with one north pole, south pole, goes to next north pole and next south pole. Okay. This is called a single turn bar wave. That means it's a bar winding, single turn, and it goes like a wave. These are the two types of double layer windings, lap winding and wave winding, which are in use. Okay. Is it clear? What is lap is coming back to the same pole, wave is going to the next pole, but it may come back to the same pole after going through one cycle like that. Okay. So, this is one aspect. Then you have the single turn coil. We have seen what is a single turn coil. Single turn coil, you need to do proper bending at the end in a bar winding. There is only a thick bar windings. So, if one side has to go on the top of a slot, another side has to go to the bottom of the slot, you must do appropriate bending in the end, isn't it? You have to bend it at the end, so that if it is not bent, it will go to the top only, because they are thick with mechanical strengths, etc. Okay. Next is we have so with this there are different, let us go to the lastly the choice of windings. What are the choice of windings that you have? One is a type of coil. It could be a concentric coil, it could be a lap coil or a wave coil. This is you can have, this is one type that you will have, choice of coil, concentric, lap or wave. Next is overhang. What is the type of overhang? That is the end. There could be diamond shape, multi-plane, single plane, two plane, three plane, or involute, that means it just bends over there, or a mush winding. So, these are the four types of overhang that we have: diamond shape, multi-plane, involute and mush, okay, at the end. Next, let us look at layers. What are the types in layers? You have single layer and double layer. These are the two choices that you have as far as the types are concerned. Okay. Then you have type of slots. Type of slots, you have open slots, closed slots or semi-closed slots. Okay. So, it will be something like this. This is called a open slot. Any slot is an open slot. Okay. Then you can have a closed slot. This is a closed slot. You can just drive something from sides. Okay. You can't put it from the top. It's closed. Or you can have semi-closed slots. Right. This is semi-closed. These are the type of slots which are in use depending upon the type of machine and the size. Open slot, closed slots and semi-closed slots. So obviously, if you want to put the conductors in semi-closed, you may have, if you have multi-turn, you can do it, because go on putting one turn or the other, then you drive it inside. That's how it can be done. So the wedge has a, so shapes of slot is very critical. You know, there are several types. For example, there are some which can have a sort of a this type of a arrangement. So you just push it inside, then put a wedge, and then put the conductors, etc. Okay, but all these things you may be able to see where if you visit an industry making these things. Okay, these machines. Next point is connection. So you will be, what type of connection you can have between phases? Star or delta connection. Okay, so these are the two possible connections that you can have, right? And phase spread. Phase spread we discovered it could be 60 degree spread or 120 degree spread. 60 or 120 degrees spread. Okay. Then slotting, you can have an integral slot or a fractional slot. That is, m is integer, m is a fraction. So these are the, I mean, various types are in use in practice. Okay. Then you have a coil span. You know the types are full pitch or corded. This is the two varieties that you have. Okay. Then circuits. So you can have series connected or parallel connected. So this is another variety you have. You have several parallel paths. So this is the connection that you can have. Then the coils, the type of coils will be single turn coil or a multi turn coil, right. So these are the varieties. So you may appreciate that it is, while making the windings, there are several factors one has to take into consideration: type of slots, type of end windings, then number of turns, then whether a series, parallel, star or delta. So all these factors come into picture in the making or designing of the windings. Okay. Now, I have some pictures, maybe just to sensitize. Because this is difficult to say. Yesterday, in last lecture, we saw that. I mean, that is the end winding connections with the slots. Conductors are coming out, top to bottom and so on. Okay. So if these are all the top and these are all the bottom. Okay. These are all single layer 60 degrees groups. You have the single layers, but they are all non-bifurcated. Okay, it's not bifurcated, it doesn't go to left and right. So you go inside. If you start from outside, you go outside, then come inside, then go to the next one for this. So this is what we have done. 120 degrees groups means you have each phase belt is 120 degrees. So you can have this arrangement like this. And these are the double layer 60 degrees groups. So one top goes to the bottom and goes like this. So these are some of the varieties. Then this is how it is shown, top one going to the bottom. Okay. Then this top one, this is the different phase. Each coil, entire group of n coils. So they go on like this, ABC phases in different slots, housed like this. Okay. Because it is difficult for you to maybe. This is a 36 slots coil with conductors placed, coil ends top to bottom. It just goes into a typical cross section of a machine. This is the stator slots, this is the rotor slots of an induction machine, and the 3-phase windings are there. These are ABC phases connected in star. Okay. Okay. Then we have bifurcated on this side, half going left, half going right, and these are all the single layer 2-pole 3-phase winding 24 slots. So, I have seen all these are basically some practical aspects of the windings. Okay. These are all the AC windings, and DC windings are again little more complicated, because in DC winding you have to bring it out to commutator segments, and commutator segments you must put the brushes at the right position. Okay. And this DC armature winding we will show you in the next lecture. Before that, a few of the points that you need to know about engineering aspects, because they are not theoretical aspects but engineering aspects. Okay. So far our discussions have been of theoretical things where we make assumptions. Okay. What are the engineering aspects? I think I will just discuss today. One is what is known as saturation. Saturation, you know there is a BH curve which goes like this. So, accordingly there will be the flux. To produce the flux you require a magnetizing current IF. So, that also will follow a saturated route. So, there is unsaturated, there is a saturated. So, this is called the magnetization characteristics. So, in all machines this becomes important. Okay. And you find saturation in air or iron? In iron. So, this is in a magnetic circuit with predominantly iron, then saturation will be present. Okay. But a magnetic circuit will have both iron and air. Therefore, in a DC machine there will be a saturation of the flux magnetic path consisting of the stator iron, rotor iron and air gap. In synchronous machine also the magnetic path will consist of stator iron, rotor iron. Okay. So, when you want to pass you want a required flux to produce the necessary voltage, you must pass a required magnetizing or this current. Okay. So, DC and synchronous machine, you know that this magnetizing current will come from the different sources which gets into the field winding. Then what happens in induction machine? Induction machine there is no such separate source available. So, the magnetizing current to produce the flux in the air gap has to come from the same voltage source. So, the same source will give you the current to magnetize the core, it will also give the current to produce the power, right. So, that is one difference you will see. There is only single source in induction machine, where there are two separate sources in other machines. One current will give you power, other current will give you flux. So, this is one aspect you must know, and the saturation level may vary from part to part of a machine. For example, there may be tooth may get saturated, because after all certain flux will get into the tooth, okay, and similarly back of tooth the core may get saturated. So, saturation level of tooth and core may be different. Okay. These are some practical aspects of the thing. Okay. This is one aspect that you will consider. Is it clear? So, this one when we discuss different machines that we will come to know the things more intimately. Second aspect that you need to know is leakage fluxes. And also fringing. Now, if you have a slot in which there are, if you have some conductors here, okay, you, so far we assumed that the whole flux lines will just go like this, isn't it? It go to the other member and come back, right? That was our normal this thing, but it doesn't happen, because you know it will have, there will be some flux lines which will not go into the other member at all, isn't it? So these are called leakage fluxes. The flux which only enters that, only links that member. If a stator, only stator leakage will be there, rotor leakage will be there. So there is what is known leakage flux, which is different than the mutual flux. When we discussed air gap members, we all talked about mutual flux only, that crosses radially in the air gap. That was the mutual flux, right, which crosses radially in the air gap from stator to rotor, okay, but leakage flux doesn't do so. Then there is also, if you have an end winding, this is the end winding, okay, this is the main inside the iron portion, and it comes to the end. So end winding also, you will find there are some flux lines which may end like that. So these are called end leakage. Okay. So when it goes into the air, it doesn't link the other member. Okay. So this is called slot leakage. This is called end leakage. And sometimes there is also another type. Supposing you have several slots carrying conductors, you expect the things, the flux lines to go on the, to the other member, but it doesn't go. Many times it might just, it may go, it may not cross the air gap. There may be some portion, this is called zigzag leakage. It's called a zigzag leakage, okay. And in some machines, so there is a slot leakage, end leakage, zigzag leakage, and there are also some different way, another called a harmonic leakage, harmonic flux. They consider all harmonic fluxes as leakage fluxes. See, you only consider the fundamental for all your energy conversion. Total flux will be different than the fundamental flux. Total flux is more than the this thing. So what people always sometimes do is that sometimes that harmonic leakage or differential leakage, they call differential leakage, is called total flux minus fundamental flux per pole. You know that all the harmonics are considered like that, okay. So you are having this factor into the account on the leakage fluxes, okay. Now nowadays one of the tools that are being used is to solve electromagnetics circuit numerically. This is next, which are the one of the important aspects. That means you solve Maxwell's equations basically. All the electromagnetics has some conductors, air space. So you look at, that means you generally model it, the geometry of the machine in a 2-dimension or 3-dimension, and modeled in terms of the Maxwell. You are aware of the Maxwell's equations, and then it's through proper boundary conditions. So you solve for the quantities, what we call it as often scalar potential or vector potentials, and solve them, okay. This is one of the things, and the tools, there are softwares available, right, which people can use, softwares using FEM, finite element methods. That means a big this thing geometry is considered as small elements, typically triangles, and then you solve numerically. This software, they are all numerical solutions. So a DC machine or induction machine, synchronous machine, all you have to do is put their dimensions into that software, and it will make small number of triangles, and then numerically using the finite element, these are called finite element methods, the quantities of the magnetic vector potential are obtained, and through which the magnetic fields can be obtained. Because these tools are now more helpful, because you can identify leakage fluxes, you can identify air gap fluxes, you can identify harmonics and so on. So you can try some of these geometries as an exercise using the softwares available commercially. Okay. So these are another engineering aspects. Now if by the FEM, if you discover that there are some portions where there is less flux or no flux, so you can make a hole there. So you can save the material. Supposing the flux line, suppose in something flux lines are going somewhere like this only, right? So I am just giving an example. So there are no flux lines here. So you can just make a hole here, maybe somewhere hole here. You can save materials. So these days they have seen you can optimize the size of a motor or a generator by such tools which are available. Okay. Now these are there will be a lot of details into this. We cannot go at this stage into this. Okay. So we have seen saturation effect, leakage flux, and a third aspect is using FEM for flux lines. The other factor that you may know is the temperature rise. This is very critical engineering point of view. Next point is you don't want the motor to get heated, and that is limited by insulation. So this is one thing. There are different classes of insulation, which are typically given in when you go for the windings, type of windings, and the type of insulations are available, and there are, okay, I'll write down, there are types are called Y insulation, A insulation, E insulation, B insulation, F insulation, H insulation, and C insulation. You may ask why they have not gone through ABCD. Okay, this historically. Okay, earliest was the Y, type Y insulation. Okay, type Y insulation. Limiting temperature is 90 degrees centigrade. So, I mean, these insulations are made up of suitable insulating materials, both synthetic, organic, bio, and so on. Okay, so that will be, you can't exceed 90 degrees centigrade. Okay. Next is type A insulation, you can't exceed 105 degrees centigrade. This is absolute temperature, not the rise in temperature. This is absolute temperature. Okay, because rise in temperature will be above the ambient. There is what is the ambient temperature, right? So ambient temperature in Himalayas may be different and Rajasthan may be different. Okay, so that will be, it may vary from 20 degrees to 40 degrees, sometimes even it go to 0 or minus degree, depending on where you are using them. Okay, then next is E type is 120 degrees centigrade. Okay, and B is 130 degrees centigrade. Type B is 130 degrees, and type F is 155 degrees centigrade. And type H is 180 degrees centigrade, and type C is the highest, which is more than 180 degrees centigrade. So these are the types of insulation, and this is the temperature limit. This is absolute temperature. This is absolute and not rise. Okay, it's not rise above the ambient. This is what this is one aspect. Now you may ask, why does there should be temperature rise at all? Why should there be temperature rise? Why should, because a machine, why should get fever? Okay, that is by the losses. You know, say if it is let us say 1000 megawatt machine. Okay, 1000 megawatt machine, say it is having 1% loss. So what is the loss? 10 megawatt is the loss. So 10 megawatt of heat has to be generated and dissipated, right? So that is where you must understand it's very critical that it might make a very damaging aspect. So the temperature, that means you are concerned with, in these machines, the method, temperature depends upon the method of heating and cooling. Okay, and this is one thing which decides the temperature. After all, if you start putting continuously water on the machine, it will temperature rise will be limited. In fact, it is done. There are water cooled conductors, hydrogen cooled conductors, right? So you can put even the rotor water is sent through shaft centers. Okay, so that is also, you can have a this cooling is done. Okay, heating and cooling methods that will limit the temperature. Other is application. You may have a motor which is only used for 5 minutes an hour, right? So it depends upon the type of power that you are going with the temperature. So when it is rising, so this may be temperature. When the power is, this is on. Supposing you are not using the machine off, so it will go down. So it might have a, so this is called a duty cycle. It is not continuously used. For example, if it is a fan, it is continuously used, right? So if it is continuously used, the temperature rise will just go like this and it will come to a stabilized point. This is steady, this is continuous. So this is continuous, this is duty cycle, this is intermittent. Okay, so this is one aspect you must know. What purpose the machine is used, right? There may be, for example, motors used for orienting radar antennas. Then only when there is a element coming, aircraft coming, then it will only move. Afterwards, it is just resting. Okay. Therefore, there could be several applications like that. Or if it is a punch press, you are pressing, then it will press and then it will go up, like it will go for some, or machine tool applications. So there are several applications where it is not continuous, it can be intermittent. Or if you are crushing some stones, so torque coming may be very random, or a grinding machine, right? So look at what the motor faces, right? So that depends upon the type of application. It could be continuously constant torque, constant power, or varying torque, varying power. So there are different applications on which the machine will operate, and accordingly temperatures will be decided, and then you can have this. So you have noticed that these are all practical problems when you are using electrical machines. If you go to the industry, these are the terms which are generally used. Okay, then another aspect which we are not going to details, but it's just to sensitize you on some of these issues which you face in practice. The other thing is about the frame sizes. This is one thing. You go to a Bata shoe company or a shoe shop, you say, I give a 7 number, 8 number shoe. You only ask 8 number, you don't give all the dimensions of your feet, isn't it? Right? You don't say that, this width of the feet, I have 5 fingers and other things, you will not say. Okay? So you will only say 7 number will have this. Okay? Similarly, okay, you will have the frame sizes. which are numbered. Okay. So, I will give you typically these are done by two organizations internationally. One is called NEMA standards, another is called IEC. NEMA is normally used in North America, and this is normally used in Europe and also in India and other countries, Asia. Okay, NEMA standards, they are called it's called National Electrical Manufacturers Association, NEMA, National Electrical Manufacturers Association. IEC is International Electrotechnical Commission. This is located in Europe and this is in USA. Okay. Now these numbers, for example, I have a typical 5 HP motor is made of, I would say, 112 M frame. Now this is one number. Okay. Now 5 HP motor or 3.7 kilowatt motor is made 112 M frame. Now it means there is a number is given. It must have some meaning to that frame. Okay. That is, the meaning is as follows. After all, a machine will typically look like this, right? Let us say this is the machine and this is the shaft. Okay. And there is this height h. What is this height indicates? Height of the center of shaft from the base. H is height of center of shaft from base. In this case, this is 112 mm, right? So what is the number indicates? Number indicates the height in millimeters of the center of shafts from the bottom, from the base. Center of shafts from the base is called 112. I have put M. What it might mean? There are this one. There are three points: S, M, L. So what it might mean? Huh? Short, medium, long. You go to buy a shirt, they will show you it is short or medium or long, isn't it? So this is, but these are engineering aspects, not modeling and theory is involved here. Okay, but this is practical. Okay, as a customer, you might say, I want, because why this frame size is important is you may want to fit it in some place where there must be enough place available for it to occupy and available to get a space for the motor. Okay. Now M is called a medium, small length. So the M, that length. So in length there are small machines frame, medium frame and long frame. So length depends upon whether it is S, M or L. So you will notice that H decides broadly the diameter, right? Broadly the diameter, and this decides the length. So for these are all standards which are available as frame sizes. Okay. So these are all these things. You ultimately there is what is known as like you have an identity card, all of you. So an identity card, ID card of each one is there. So each machine has an ID card, okay, and that is that you have most of the information in the nameplate. So this is an important engineering aspect. Okay, first thing you must do when once you buy a machine is to look at its nameplate. It will tell you the identity of the machine. It's the ID card of the machine. So what it will give you the voltage rating. If it is AC, it is line to line voltage. Then it will tell you the number of phases, with a single phase or three phase. It will tell you the frequency. If you look at a nameplate, right, then it will tell you the temperature rise, what is allowed, class of insulation, and for which it is allowed. It can be duty. That means you can use it for a short time duty or intermittent duty or a continuous duty, right. So these are broadly it is available. So you must look at a nameplate. So this is an important aspect to see, and it also tells you how much current you can pass through, and current may be in the armature, field, armature voltage, field voltage, they are all specified, and then you can, and then it also tells you what is the speed in rated speed. So these are all called rated. It doesn't mean that you have to operate all the time at this value, but you must take care that it doesn't exceed beyond a limit. There could be a short overloads are possible, a little more voltage, a little more current, but if it is rated for 5 amps, you can't put 10 amps for 1 hour or so, right. So that is the limitation. So you as electrical engineers, you must understand what this nameplate tells you. It is like a horoscope for the machine. It tells all the identity of the machine. So I would suggest that before conducting any test on a machine, first take the nameplate details, and nameplate tells lot of things about a machine. So till now we have covered all the general aspects of different machines. From now onwards we will take particular aspects of particular machines. Okay, we close it here.